All right, today we're going over lats, and I think you're gonna like this one because if you have a hard time connecting to, or maybe your lats are just not as wide as you want, we're gonna go over some movements today that's gonna instantly create a better connection with those lats, all the way from that lower lat up into that insertion point. And what it really has to do is putting that lat in extreme stretch position and contracting through it. So if you're ready, let's get those wide ass, you'll never look good in a dress shirt again, size lats. So a long time ago, I saw somebody doing a variation of these and I thought, that is the dumbest, most awkward, that guy's gonna hurt himself. I like it. Made a couple tweaks to it, and I have to say, when it comes to connecting with those lower lats, there's nothing better. And there's a couple reasons this is such a good movement. The first being is we can actually engage that lat before we even start the movement because we're doing a single arm cable row, and what we can do is actually feel like we're doing an oblique crunch, tilt to the side, and that's your starting position. You should actually feel like your lat's fully engaged all the way down in that lower lat, and then you start the movement. The second being, since you're already connected to that lat, it's easier for you to push that stretch and fully open up that lat and then contract it back because sometimes you do lats and you really think you have that great connection to your back, and what's happening is your shoulders are taking over the movement, your biceps jump in, and you get a little movement with that back, but you don't really get to exaggerate like this movement does. Couple quick notes here. Now, even though you're opening that lat up, you want to keep those shoulders squared up to the machine because as you open up, you actually want to actively drive against it, and that's going to open up and stretch even more. Now, the second thing is what we've talked about in all the other lat videos. The more often you can keep that angle in a fixed position, the better off you're going to be because once you start extending forward, brings that bicep into play. So keep it in a fixed position, let the elbow drift forward, and then contract. So one arm rows on the landmine here, really an incredible way to stretch and contract that lat. And we've talked about it before, but I want to drive this home because if you set up in the traditional way, one, you look awful. That's just first reason not to do it. Second reason is you have to contract those abs and keep them stable that you can't use as much weight and you really can't stretch that lat and open it up like you want. So what you have to do is set up perpendicular to it. And this is where it gets a little counterintuitive because this is one of the few exercises other than certain variations of stiff leg deadlifts where the stretch itself is more important than contraction because the stretch, how much you can open up that lat, dictates how well you can contract it up. So make sure not only are you opening that lat, but you're actually actively drifting back and pushing against it, driving back, and really opening that lat as much as possible. So this wall has nothing to do with the next exercise, but I want to use it to show you, kind of justify why we're breaking my golden rule of never extending that arm all the way up when you're trying to hit those lats, because this does relate to a lot of things going on in the next exercise. So if you take a step back and lean against this wall, you can see in a fully stretched position, that lat is already engaged because I'm getting pressure from that arm and it's stretching that lat. So throughout the movement, no matter what I do, when I come back to the stretched position, that lat's gonna be engaged because of that pressure. So the way we're gonna put those lats in a hyper-stretched position is by grabbing a seated row, throwing a rope on there, hopping all the way behind it, and then hinging at the hips to a point where you start to feel those lats stretch. From there, all you have to focus on is flaring those elbows out the entire time. And as you get into the negative portion movement, I would put even more force downward, driving more force down to really stretch those lats even more. I guarantee you're gonna wake up tomorrow morning, put some deodorant on, and be like, what in the shit did I do? As always, like, subscribe, and the notification bell. Leave a comment for the video you want next. Get after it, get growing. Talk to you soon.